Welcome to Spaghettimoon's Curves Tools tutorial. It's a mouthful. Blender has a number of useful features for use with its curves. This tutorial we're going to talk a little bit about extruding a shape along a curve and using the curve as a path, and then using a taper curve to alter the geometry. When I say extrude along a path, I mean taking a shape defined by a curve and essentially extruding it along the set path of a completely separate curve. Right. I'm just going to show you how to do that, and this kind of thing is very useful for creating things like pipes or rope, things like that. So let's create our curve. Spacebar, add curve. Let's use a Bezier curve. Alright. You notice when we make a curve 3D, oops, over here, these little tracks will appear on it, and we'll be going into that later, but we want to have our curve 3D for now, so we don't have to click that again. So let's go into full view mode, and we'll just create a couple more points for our curve. Go and control left click, and make our curve a bit more interesting. There we go. Now we're going to create the shape that we want to extrude along this curve, so let's go back to object mode, create a new shape, so let's use a Bezier circle for that. And let's move that over here and scale it down a bit. Okay, so what we're going to do is, we're in object mode, so click our original curve. First off, we better rename this curve shape that we've got, so call it, I don't know, we'll just call it bev, because we're going to be beveling the shape along our curve. So select your path curve, and what we're going to do is go to this little field here. I'm not sure if you can see that, so I'll just go into full screen mode. There we go, which is bevob, and this is where you put in the object that you want to extrude along. But so I'll just zoom out, and okay, and since the name of our object was bev, oops. There we go. As soon as you type it in and complete the command, it turns into a tube, which can be very interesting. You go into edit mode, you can still see the handles for the curve, but you can't see the little tracks for to signify it's a 3D curve. And you can edit this curve in any way. It's great for create piping, as I said, or tentacles, anything really, anything you can think of. Let's go into perspective mode. Okay, now back to the track looking parts. You can't see them right now, but by pressing or say I select this, I've already got it selected, the center CV, and I press T, which stands for twist, and oops, what am I doing? And as you can see, as I turn it around, the curve becomes almost like a screw or a bolt or something like that, or a twisted one. Maybe a better example can be shown over here, where there's an open end. Or maybe you might be able to get a better effect, because you can actually still edit this shape here and say, in fact, a better way to show you how to twist one would be if I tell you what, I'll just subdivide that lot, and I'll move a couple of these in. So we get a weird shape, and you can see that we got a completely weird, like a track really, or some kind of strange one. And if I want to edit and then twist again, you'll notice the effect's a lot more obvious now, but you can just, it's really useful for creating something like twine or rope or wiring, that kind of thing. Okay. Now, when we were going beveling our curve, you may have noticed that there was another field underneath it called taper ob, which is for tapering. This is fairly self-explanatory. When something tapers, the essential definition of the shape that's tapering, or the curve, is smaller, and therefore making that certain part of the curve or object smaller in turn, and tapering it. You can get some very interesting effects using a taper curve. You can create some organic things like hair or a tree trunk or things like that. So let's just get rid of, let's go back and untwist that, because it looks kind of ugly. So let's create a taper curve. So let's go over here into object mode, add another Bezier curve. I'll move that over here. And we'll call it, where's the, oh here it is. We'll just call it taper. And we'll go to select this. And you can see, again, it's over here, the taper ob. And just type in taper, and you can see it's turned into a kind of strand. But you can see that we can actually edit this. So we can, if we move it along, and we create a more sort of curve, you can see how it affects certain parts, like this particular CV, it affects that end, this CV, and you can add more CVs in there to create more interesting shapes. It takes a bit of practice, but you can get some really great shapes using this. Okay. A kind of geometry you could create doing this would probably be very hard trying to do it with a polygonal model. So that's why curves are very good for creating shapes and geometry like this, and afterwards you can set the resolution to however much you want and convert it into a mesh, like so. Say I wanted it to be a bit lower resolution, I'll just whack the resolution down to 5. Oh. And you see it's a lot more blocky, but when we go to convert it into a mesh, it's still fairly dense. Well, not hugely dense, but you can see what I mean. And now you can do other alterations with the mesh, set smooth it, and all that, all the other polygon editing things you can do. And that's pretty much it for curve tools. I hope you found this useful, and happy modelling.